Hello, Pile One, and welcome to your reading on being personally victimized by love. Now, of course, that is a movie reference. That's pretty obvious. But another thing that I want to talk about before we get into the reading is the fact that this reading can touch on some pretty sensitive subject matter because it is about talking about the bad experiences we've had in love. And yes, there's run of the mill failure and rejections, and just that they're common doesn't mean that they hurt any less, but there can be some severe things that have come up through this reading in the past. And so I kind of just want to issue a bit of a trigger warning before I even get into the reading, just in case if you're still feeling kind of fresh about the things that you've been hurt by, maybe now is not the time to receive this message, just because part of the message is what value there is to take from this experience should you choose to. Of course, sometimes something's just shitty and we just want to move on from it. Sometimes that's all there is to take from the experience. The point is, sometimes if we're not ready to receive certain messages because we're still feeling a certain way about whatever it is that we've experienced, just be sure that you're ready to receive it, is all I'm saying. And if at any point during this reading you start to feel uncomfortable or triggered in any way, go ahead and click off. That's not what we're trying to do here in any way, shape, or form. Take care of yourself, basically, is what I want to say before getting into this reading. Now, I have seen the cards, so I do know that there's nothing overtly triggering during this reading, but regardless, I don't know what triggers you. I don't know where you're at, and so I just kind of want to preemptively put that warning out there before we get in. But okay. You've been personally victimized by love, and the top three cards, the Lenormand cards, are answering the question of what happened that for you to feel victimized by love. The single card on the top right, is going to be talking about the value to be taken from this experience. And then the tarot cards are advice for you at this moment in regards to what we're talking about. So with dog, birds, and Hilda, whenever the Hilda cards come up in this Lenormand deck, I like to talk about how Lenormand as a card system has a man and a woman card. I think it's like lady and I don't remember what he's called, but it might just be man and woman, to be honest. The point is it's masculine and feminine. And because this specific deck takes the character, like Hilda, this is an artist's character, instead of making a brand new character for the Lenormand deck, they just there's two Hilda cards basically. So that the Hilda card is coming up here is to me pointing that that's you. And we have dog, which is loyalty, and then birds, which is communication, loud communication, public communication, what people know, what a lot of people know, and what a lot of people are communicating. It can be gossip, of course. In a lot of ways, it does mean gossip. But birds is also just communication as it kind of makes its way through society and through large amounts of people, basically. And it's really neat that, I just gave you the definitions for the traditional meanings for each of these cards, but even the imagery in the cards themselves, because in dog, we have Hilda holding up this little dog, and it's kind of looking like she's showing it off to the bird that's on the post in front of her. And then in the next card, we have a whole bunch of birds. And Hilda's scaring them off in this scenario, but I'm not paying too much attention to what Hilda's doing in this scenario. I'm paying more attention to the birds, this little bird that's in the dog card going and telling all the other birds, and now it's going through the grapevine that there's this loyalty happening between these two individuals. And it's come and made its way back to you because it's the birds, and then even Hilda's facing in the direction of the Hilda card there at the end. So it's made its way over to you, and then lo and behold, who's here with you? The little dog. So what does this tell me? Point blank, for a lot of you, what happened is you were with someone who you ended up finding out was not single. was with someone else. Or if it wasn't that they were with someone else the entire time, it was that they got with someone else instead of getting with you, and you came and found out about it. For some of you, there's to add insult to injury, there's the added aspect of a lot of people, pretty much everybody, knowing about what happened between the two of you. Whether it was that like the two of you were very public, or people just knew that you guys were dating and, trying to, like, I almost wanted to say try to work things out. I'd take that if it applies, but like just having a go at it, basically, is what I wanted to say. And so not only is it that all of this is happening, but like everybody knows about it, which, if you're a private person, that can say, I mean, for anybody, even if you're not a private person, that just sucks. Having everybody know your business like that, pretty goddamn shitty. I'm trying to like see if there's any other way that these cards can be interpreted in the context of this reading. And I'll be honest with you, I don't really see one. In some instances, I guess to some degree, if that's not entirely true for you, another thing that could be true for you that might like fit the message that's coming through, that like would make it apply to you, basically, is if you are with someone and you've just noticed, or maybe you've heard, because of birds here, like you've heard that this person has like a wandering eye, or maybe that like, I mean, that goes, I was going to say maybe it's that they're cheating, but that goes with the same first scenario where it's like you're with someone and then you're finding out that they were with someone else. But if it's not that, then it's like maybe they didn't go as far as like cheating, but it's just like you've just noticed that there's a lot of people vying for your person's attention. And it's like you have like these feelings of like discomfort and, whatever. But like it's also this idea of like, do you want to be with someone that you like? Okay, because if you can trust your partner, yes, jealousy and envy is always going to be a natural human reaction, and it's healthy to have that, to a certain degree, with your partner. Now, obviously, once they start to manipulate that, that's a weird thing, and you should get away from it. That's a huge red flag. But what I'm kind of picking up on here is like, if you could trust this person, and you know that you could trust this person, a little bit of jealousy or envy kind of just washes by, because it's like, no, I know my partner would never do that. But there's this sense of discomfort. If that's true for you, if this scenario is true for you, then the cards are kind of coming through as like you're uncomfortable. And so it's like, to some degree, it's like, can you trust this individual? And so, okay, those are the scenarios that should fit your scenario in order to make this reading accurate for you. Again, just to reiterate them, you heard or you saw, you basically know that the person that you've been with is with someone else, got with someone else. Whether they were cheating on their person with you or they were cheating on you with that person, if the message is going to apply regardless. If it is not that, and there's the added detail of it might be true that a lot of people know about all of this happening. And if that's not true, then it's that you've noticed that your partner does, you're realizing that you don't have as much trust in your partner as you thought that you did, or you're just realizing that you don't trust your partner at all. And you're kind of like just in the throes of that. So, okay, what value is there in this whole experience should you choose to find it? Should you choose to look for it, basically? Relief. Now, yeah, that sounds really shitty, because it's like, how is relief possible when I'm feeling so shitty? And how, like, in this horrible scenario that I've been played, how is there relief possible? Well, because if you follow the breadcrumbs, you're basically being told that this person was never worth your time, because you, and I'm making the assumption here because the cards aren't really saying what I'm about to say, but I'm going to make the assumption based on the fact that this advice is coming through for you. But to some degree, you showed up as you needed to. You understood that you were trying to establish something real and romantic and, monogamous with this individual. Or if not monogamous, if it's polyamorous, then, that even polyamory has its boundaries, where it's like, okay, it's you, me, etc., whoever's in there, and then that's it. We invite people in together. There's certain, it's is it called a polymorph? Each like, polyamorous grouping is going to like be different. But my point is, should you choose to recognize the truth that this individual was simply not for you, that is the relief. That you've dodged the bullet here. That if you have already invested your time, like if you're with this person, you're married to them, then it's like, okay, the relief is in making sure that the rest of your life isn't marred by this individual. If it never got to that point, if you only dated this person, or even not that, like you just talked a little bit with this person and then you kind of saw how iffy they were, you dodged the bullet. You are being shown that this person was never worth a damn, and so take that accordingly. See that for what it is. It wasn't for you, because not only was this person like elsewhere, but they're weird, they're iffy, they're gross, and why would you want that? So yes, the ego might be like, but they're who I want, I love them, etc., etc. It might not even be just the ego. It might be your genuine feelings for this person, because that feelings are feelings. But the point is, at the end of the day, somewhere down the line, you will come to understand, and there will come a peace. Okay, let me rephrase that. Let me reword what I'm trying to say. Peace and calm, and like not just peace in your life, but like making your peace with this, like the acceptance of this for the benefit that it is, for the blessing that it is, that is waiting for you. You just have to make your way there through the feelings that you're feeling now. And should you continue to be honest with yourself about the feelings that you're having about this whole situation as they unfold, you will naturally find your way towards that peace that's waiting for you, towards that calm, towards that acceptance. That is what like relief card just by itself is kind of letting me know. Now, the tarot cards it's a bit of a double message, where the first 4 cards are giving us a little bit of insight into what's going on their side of the camp, this person who wronged you, basically. But then after that message, all 5 cards are a message to you specifically. So point blank, what's going on in their camp, you're being told that this is an individual who has a lot of plans. That might have been something that drew you to them. If not like their plans for their own life, or like the plans that they have, plans to do things that like might have interested you. It might have also been like the plans that they made with you. Like you guys made a whole bunch of date plans and all of these things were going to happen, and like it never fucking happened. Or if it did, like it just didn't to the extent that it should have, or maybe a few things off that list happened, but it never really panned out the way it was supposed to. And it's because this individual simply doesn't have what it takes to build something to the likes that they were starting to see it would take with you. To kind of put that simpler, they started to recognize that to build with you meant they would have to do more than they were willing to. You're going to have to apply that, because that's going to be nuanced. That's going to be different for all of you at varying degrees. But at some point, there was this recognition by this individual that they could not build with you to the standard that you were capable of building, that you are capable of building. Now, again, let's say you built a marriage with this person, a family with this person. People lie. People feign it. People fake it till they make it, because there's this conditioning that we all go through that, well, love is what matters at the end of the day. And that is very true. This is the temple of Venus. Of course, love is what matters at the end of the day. But there is this abuse of that knowledge that happens where, well, as long as you start a family and as long as you guys are like, working it out and putting the work in, well, sometimes you're not compatible with this person and there's nothing to work out. It's just you weren't meant for each other. You're supposed to work on it when you know that person, the compatibility is there. There's something to work for. I completely lost my track of. Okay, sorry. Right. Okay. So if they did build something with you, like it was, maybe they didn't they recognized it too late. Like further down the line, like yeah, I thought I wanted this, but now I don't. Shitty as shit. Just sorry that if that's true for you. Anyways, regardless of how far you got with this person. It is being kind of pointed out crystal clear that this person is not at your level in very many ways. But specifically in the ways that you're capable of building a relationship. I usually don't ever take the pile marker as part of the reading. That's usually not something that I like to do. But your pile marker is very interesting because it's like construct, but it's built out of these like building blocks. So it's like construct. And so it's like building something, right? And so you have this like, you have architecture level understanding for building a relationship. You like, especially in comparison to this person, like, you know what you like. This is gonna vary differently for all of you, but like one example could be like, you know what you want. You've very likely, and again, this doesn't have to be true for you. I'm just giving an example to kind of give you the kind of imagery I'm getting in my head. Where like, let's say you know what you want and very likely have had experiences like you've had like serious relationships in the past that have informed, you know, the right and what to do and what not to do, what works and what doesn't, at least for you. And like maybe like what to look out for in certain partners, like to, you know, let you know that things are going awry or whatever the case is. Like you have more under your belt to help you to inform what a healthy relationship looks like, what the type of relationship that you want looks like. Whereas this person kind of just came into it very likely just through attraction and was like, yeah, this person's cool. I'll just go along with whatever they say. And they just, maybe even you as well, kind of counted that as love, where it's like, oh, well, you know, they pretty much, they love me so much, they go with the flow, they go with whatever I say. Well, do you really want to build a partnership with someone who is so willing to surrender their autonomy in something as important as building a relationship? But whatever, that's neither here nor there, because, okay, there's comfort that's being given to you. This message of insight into this individual is being given to you to comfort you, to let you know, hun, this person was never going to be capable of giving you the love that you picture in your head. Even if there was good times, even if you did feel that love, you know, two people who are in close proximity and who get along to the degree that you guys did to start to form like a relationship the way that you did, yeah, there's going to be feelings. There's going to be like chemistry. Sure. Regardless of that, like at the end of the day, a long-standing relationship requires a high degree of understanding. And you're being demonstrated as someone who has a high capacity of understanding for relationship building. And this person is being casted as someone who does not have that knowledge, who does not have that capacity. And if they do, they don't have it right now, or they didn't when you guys were together or building something. That's just what it is. Now, the Four of Cups reversed is it within the context of we're still talking about this individual and what's going on in their camp. The Four of Cups reversed, for some of you, and only take this if it applies if you know that this is something that like might be possible for this individual, if you know that they have a propensity for it. But if you know nothing about this individual, don't take this as like, oh yeah, this is what's happening. It might, but that's not what I'm picking up. If you know that this person has a propensity for numbing themselves through the consumption of certain substances, they're doing that a lot. Very likely because of the way that things panned out with you, but mostly because one of the things is like what they chose over you, like that's taking a lot out of them, but then also other things in their life. Like if this person is moving so shadily in relationships, you can rest assured that they're moving as such in other aspects of their life. And when you move shady throughout your entire life, you're gonna catch consequences for that. That must be chaotic and just wild, and what a headache. So again, bullet dodged. But another thing that I'm getting from the Four of Cups reversed is this individual wanting to reach out to you in the future. That's going, again, to be different for all of you. I don't know when in the future. Maybe it won't happen at all. Maybe it just might be a desire within this person to want to reach out to you. Maybe it's that like this recognition of that they miss you. But the point is, like, this is a bad offer. This is an offer from this person to invite you into their turmoil and into their shit, and it will do nothing but bring that into your life. For you to accept this person's offer is for you to accept their turmoil and all of the stress that they bring into your life. Don't do that. It's a bad offer. The Four of Cups reverse specifically is stating this as a bad offer. So earlier when I was saying, like, even if they do have the capacity to get to the point where you are, an understanding of like how to build a relationship, anything that they have to offer you is going to be bad. I don't know, like, that's just what's coming. You just have to put this person to bed. You have to move on from this. You have to be sure that should they be audacious enough to reach out to you, you need to know that you can trust yourself and be strong enough to, like, nah, this is a bad offer. I love myself too much and my peace that I built, because again, that's being promised to you. I value that too much to risk it by welcoming you into my life again. But okay, enough about them. Let's talk about you. Now, I did say that this was going to be uncomfortable. I did say that because there is a little bit of a lashing here. There is comfort at the end, a little bit, but most of it is a lashing, because basically what's being said is what was being said about them, where this person has a lot of plans, they have the capacity to build, but there's not a lot of follow through. That's also true for you, my dear. It's being said here in the cards. You have the Three of Wands, which is like, yes, I have all these plans. I can see far. I can see into my future. And if I do this, this, and this, then things like this will happen, and then I'll be able to do that. You have all of these plans. And the Knight of Pentacles is saying you have every capacity to build on those plans. In fact, I would wager that you're even the type to, like, start on something and then you don't follow through to finish it, or you don't pursue it long enough to generate the results that you want, because following the Three of Wands and the Knight of Pentacles, on the other side of the Knight of Pentacles is the Four of Wands reversed. The Four of Wands being the successful construction of the base of a structure. So the four, like the base, but also like the four corners upon which the walls will be built. That's the Four of Wands. And so the successful construction of something that's going to be built, it's coming up reversed. So it's like you have the plans, that's the Three of Wands, and you have the capacity to take this to the end, basically the Knight of Pentacles. But then we have the Four of Wands. You stop before this thing can get started and take off on, like, I was going to say take off on its own, but that's not what I wanted to say. Like, where, like, okay, starting something takes a lot of work, but once it's established and you kind of find a rhythm in that thing, it stops becoming as much work as it is at the beginning when you're figuring everything out. And that's kind of what I'm trying to point out, is that you stop before you get to that point where you can get comfortable with doing this as part of your routine and doing this in a way that it doesn't feel as taxing as it does or it did when you were beginning. And so, okay, there's this like pattern that's being pointed out with these first three cards. And so the Four of Cups reversed is kind of pointing to this moment of frustration with yourself and with this pattern, where it's like, okay, I do this thing, and like, in order to get the results that I want, I really need to stop doing this thing. I'm reaffirming it to you here. And I'm positive that there are other people, other things that are reaffirming this in your life where, yes, you have great plans and you have the capacity to get it done. So get it done. Stop like selling yourself short. Stop like shooting yourself and your successes in the face by getting in your own way and not finishing these things, not seeing them through. And so get frustrated with yourself. Have your Legally Blonde moment where you are buying your laptop in your Playboy bunny costume because that jerk basically lets you know that you are never going to be good enough for him. Get angry. And if you don't want to utilize this POS anymore for your own benefit, then get angry at yourself for not investing in yourself the way that you were willing to invest in this POS. I'm guilty of that too, girl. Don't worry, the lashes are coming for me too. Okay, should you take this seriously, and should you get serious about investing in yourself the way that you wanted to invest in that connection, the promise is not only relief and peace like we were talking about before, but it's also the Seven of Pentacles. which here is depicted as the bag. I mean, and not just one bag. She's got 7 bags of money here. Traditionally, the 7 of Pentacles is going to be about the results that are generated from what you've put in. So it's always, that's a pretty neutral card where, you know, what you give is what you get. If you plant this seed and you water it and you take care of it, hey, guess what? The plant is going to grow. And if it's a fruit plant, it's going to give you fruit. That's the traditional understanding of the 7 of Pentacles, where it's like, okay, if you planted the seed, but you never watered it and you kind of just relied on the rain to take care of it, but it was a kind of dry season, don't be surprised when just a little sprout comes up and nothing else happens. It kind of died on the vine, basically. So the 7 of Pentacles is basically pointing out, like, what you give is what you get. So if you're going to start to take yourself seriously and you're going to start to invest in yourself, trust that the returns will come. If you're being told that you have great plans and you have the capacity to see them through, trust that the returns will come. And in fact, what I want to point out, what I've been wanting to point out, is that in this particular deck, the 7 of Pentacles isn't just a neutral card. It is one of positive returns. And not just positive returns, profit. Like, what the investments that you put in coming back to you, in this case, 7-fold, because it's the 7 of Pentacles, 7 bags, just the way I'm seeing it. But like, just, there's going to be a scale to that in your own specific case. But okay, my friend, just to kind of reiterate, you had your time wasted and your feelings hurt by someone who was not worth a damn, and you were given that knowledge so that you could see clearly that this person was not for you. You are meant to find peace and relief, and that acceptance of not only what happened, but that this was a blessing in disguise, that is waiting for you should you choose to maneuver through the pain that you're going through the discomfort of everything that's happened. If you invest in yourself, and if you start to pour into yourself everything that you wanted to pour into this connection and into this individual, trust that not only is peace and calm and relief of all of this waiting for you, it's also a return on your investments, a profit on your investments. Really big things happening for you, successes waiting for you, should you choose to invest in yourself the way that you wanted to invest in this individual or individuals, whatever the case is for you. My friend, I really hope that this helped. I wish you Godspeed on all of your endeavors, but specifically through this one, because it does seem arduous and painful. And I hope to catch you at another one of my readings, but even if I don't, bye. Hello, Pile 2, and welcome to your reading on being personally victimized by love. Now, before we begin, I do want to point out that this reading can bring up uncomfortable topics because it is, in essence, about the bad experiences that we have in love. So that's always going to be true, regardless of, you know, what pile you pick, but some can get more intense than others. This one can be a little intense. The message itself is coming through very vague to be applied in very many different scenarios, so it's going to vary widely. But there can be, the extreme end of the gradient here can be kind of extreme. So if you are currently still dealing with the processing of those feelings, the acceptance of those things happening, and if not the acceptance, then arriving at a place where you can engage with the subject matter in a responsible and healthy way, one that isn't a detriment to your own health. If you're not there, then, go ahead and click off. This isn't the reading for you. Let's go ahead and find you another one. But, okay. To get into the message, what happened? What situation kind of panned out for you to feel personally victimized by love? Well, we have Fox and Mice together, which in and of itself, both cards are, in and of themselves, each card speaks of some type of nuisance. The Fox is a thief, someone very convincing, very disarming even, that gets away with a lot through their skill. And gets away with a lot through their skill can be a good thing, but in this particular scenario, because it's being accompanied by mice, I can ascertain that the fox in this scenario was using their skill for more nefarious reasons. That mice is coming up next to fox. It's not just, and the mice next to fox isn't just an indication to fox that it's like more nefarious. It also speaks to the lasting impression that this individual left behind. Now, this is where it starts to vary on a gradient. For some of you on the, and by calling it the less extreme part of the gradient, I am not saying that it's not, like, I'm not trying to invalidate your experience, but once I talk about the extreme bit, and if that doesn't apply to you, you'll understand why I'm speaking of your experience as a less extreme part of the gradient. The less extreme part of the gradient is one where the lasting impression, what this individual has left you with, is trauma and hurt feelings. Hurt feelings specifically, trauma through hurt feelings, trauma through the shitty experience that you had with a shitty person. And so now you're struggling to not only move on from what happened between you and this individual, but you're also having a hard time trusting other people as well. At the more extreme end of the gradient, now it doesn't have to be that you're either one of these. Again, it's a scale, so you're gonna have like somewhere in between. What this person left you with is something more physical, something more tangible. It could be something like they left you with the mortgage, they left you with the bills, they left you with, to kind of, I mean, I know I already cursed, but again, just to kind of be sensitive about the topic, something that you had to get medical treatment for. Whether it's something that was contracted through intimacy or because they put their hands on you. Another example that it could be still part of this extreme end of the gradient is they left you behind with a child and or children. Maybe it's like you're all over that gradient where, you know, this is someone that you built a whole life with who ran off and left you with all of this to deal with. The point is, what this person did, as a consequence of them leaving, you have been left not only behind by this person, but you've been left with something that you, in essence, have to deal with. Now, let me take a second. If, you know, you were left behind and what was left tangibly was a child, I'm not saying that this reading is saying your child is a nuisance or something to deal with. But being a single parent definitely is something to deal with. Dealing with heartbreak as you're trying to raise a child definitely is something to deal with. And so that's what I'm talking about. Just to kind of like, I just wanted to like make sure that that was coming through clearly. But okay, we have tree here at the end. And yes, tree was an indication of like what you were left behind with, something to tend after, something to look after, something that is basically yours to take care of, like yours to deal with again. But spoiler alert for later on in the tarot portion, a tree is also picking up on what you can do with this situation. And in essence, that's what this whole reading is about. But I digress. With the trust card here, I had mentioned earlier how part of what might have been left behind is having a harder time trusting people, particularly romantic partners, because of the experience that you had with this person. That trust is coming up specifically does indicate to me that for a large portion of you, it might be that you haven't dated. Even if it's been years, you haven't even opened yourself up to the possibility of love because of what's gone on with this person. And even if you have, it hasn't been very successful, very likely because of those trust issues that you have. I mean, maybe not, like if you've tried multiple times, it's likely that there were some creeps in there, because there tend to always be, but at least you can, like, there's probably a recognition that, like, you know, if you were out there dating, that there might have been like a few, if not like one person with potential that you cut away from because, again, this difficulty with trusting because of what went on with this past person. To kind of elaborate a little bit, the trust card coming up here is answering the question of what value there is for you to take from this experience if you want to. Because again, when we're hurt in any indication, like regardless of whether it's by love or in love or not, sometimes we don't want to think about it. We just want to put something away and just forget about it. But the card there is available, and really this reading here, the whole point of the reading is, should you choose to do something with that horrible experience and alchemize it into something else? Well, this card is answering the question of what could be alchemized through these horrible experiences, and we're talking about trust. So yes, that idea of, if that applies to you, where you're having a difficult time trusting romantic partners, believe it or not, the experience that you had with this individual that has left you not trusting anymore is meant to shape your understanding of trust. If you don't immediately understand what I'm saying by that, basically what I'm saying is, through your experiences with this person, you now see what you can't trust. And sometimes it really is about, like, sometimes people are so good. Sometimes people lie to your face so easily. And they're so convincing. And sometimes it's even because we have feelings for them. So we like looking at them through rose-colored glasses so we don't see the red flags, because they just look like red, normal pink flags. Maybe, so it's just like this idea of, maybe even it's that, where maybe you're a little too trusting. And so now you kind of understand what happens when you're a little too trusting. And even if you're not, it's not so much to like rub it in your face, like, this is what you get for trusting. You knew better and you did it anyway. No. In that case, then forget everything I've said. The second part, or like the second interpretation of trust here, is what applies to you. And let me just point out that this second interpretation of trust applies to everybody here, not just for those for whom that first interpretation doesn't apply. Where trust is then trusting yourself, which is always important. We always need that. If we can't trust ourselves, how in the hell are we going to trust anybody else? Kind of butchering that quote there, but it doesn't matter. Okay, to get into the elaboration with tarot, which is basically answering the question of what advice there is for you in handling all of this. Basically how to alchemize and get to a point of trust, self-trust, and if it applies, trust in others, in the right people. How do we get to that? Well, first of all, there has to be an understanding that the experiences you had with this person, horrible as they were, did shape you into, if it isn't that it shaped you into someone stronger, like, maybe that happened. Maybe that was the experience where through this you've grown from it, you've learned from it, and you've become stronger through the process. If that's not true, then you have to recognize that you weren't completely defeated. You weren't completely, the word that's coming to mind, and just, it's coming to mind because of the art style of the deck here. You weren't thwarted by this enemy. This person is being represented by the Five of Swords, which in this deck comes through as this robotic, like mercenary kind of character with a gun. And all around him are like dead bodies, basically. And because it's a sci-fi tarot, so it's meant to be like sci-fi-ish and pulpy. They're meant to look like comic book covers. And the byline for the Five of Swords is the slaughter of the green men. Did Argon the Destroyer go too far? So this idea of this carelessness, this violence that this person was capable of in regards to you. Again, take that term violence as it applies, where if it was violence in terms of like being completely inconsiderate of you and your feelings, or however else that could apply, it really solidifies that idea of them. So they're being like talked about in terms of like fox and mice, but then also this imagery of a mercenary who can take things who can take things very far. And you are being represented by the Knight of Pentacles, and he himself looks kind of like a counterpart to the image in the Five of Swords, because the Five of Swords looks all menacing and dangerous and obviously very villainous, but the Knight of Pentacles looks very heroic. He's in, like, the image that he's in is very bright and the colors are very vibrant. He's dressed in blue and white, and yes, he has a gun, but it's holstered. He's about ready to pull it out, but it's not like it just points to his hesitation, to the wisdom in hesitating, the wisdom in knowing that there isn't always a need to resort to violence, that there isn't always a need to retaliate. And so, like, regardless of whether or not, like, because, okay, I'm seeing these two together, like, kind of like a comic strip, where here comes Argon the Destroyer, your person, coming through ready to kill, because that's just how they're, like, wired. They're just violent in nature. And you are not. You have the capacity to defend yourself and perhaps others. But because of who you are at your core, which is good, and you're not wired to just violently hurt people, stick with the metaphor here, you hesitate. You know that it's not just about, someone's coming, draw the gun, bah, and then ask questions later. Like, you have the wisdom to, like, hesitate and be like, wait, let me process what's going on around me. Okay, what am I getting from these two cards basically is okay, I'm gonna nerd out and I'm sorry, but I have to talk about my favorite anime in order to really get this point across. Okay, sorry. I'm sorry if you don't like anime and you totally think I'm a weeb now. I'm sorry. But if you haven't watched it, and if you don't like anime, don't watch this one because it's very anime. But it's basically about volleyball. It's called Haikyuu. And it's about this high school volleyball team. And yes, it is about volleyball. And, like, yes, it can get a little repetitive. But the point is, one of the great things about the show is how it portrays not enemies, but, like, a challenger. Like, how good it can be to a person that's competitive, at least in the context of, like, that show, because, you know, they're competitive, they're playing a competitive sport. How good it is to them as individuals, as individual players, to have an opponent worthy of their skill. Because a lot of these characters are so excellent at the sport that they're, like, bored and they just, like, obliterate the teams that they play against. But then when they are matched up against a team that can match their skill or are even better than them and then defeat them, it, like, that defeat really, like, molds them, it, like, motivates them to get themselves stronger, to do better, to, like, get better at their skill and, like, become better, like, as an individual. That's, like, the best way that I can describe it. And so it's not so much about giving this person their respect because it's like, hey, well, like, at least they made you better. No, like, fuck them. I'm going to continue to cuss. Just fuck them. Okay? It's not about that. The point here, because within the context of that show, it's an anime about high school kids. Like, of course, we're going to have to keep it bright. And, you know, it has to be about, like, these kids respect each other because they're playing a sport. Sportsmanship. Love it. Cool. Phenomenal. But we're not talking about sportsmanship here. But regarding you, we're talking about someone who came in and fucked you over, who hurt you, who did things, like, that knew would hurt you and then did it anyway because they just didn't care. So, okay. It is not about them. Fuck them. They suck. But you do have to recognize that, again, this didn't destroy you, which means there is strength. You have a strength. You have a capacity to not only maneuver through the pain that this person has left you with, but you were not defeated. Like, regardless of, or rather, despite how violent it was, whatever this person did, you're still here. You're still doing what you're doing. However you're doing it, but you're doing it. Okay, those two cards were speaking of something together. The last three cards are speaking to something else entirely. I want to talk about the Hanged Man because the Hanged Man, and yes, in your reading it's coming up reverse, but I want to talk about it upwards first because the Hanged Man upwards depicts a character who is hanging upside down. And the whole traditional understanding of that card is the access to new perspectives through the sacrificing of your old perspective. It can be applied in terms of gaining something by means of sacrifice, but very often it's in terms of perspective, where you kind of have to go through things in order to see things in a way that you can, like, okay, how do I want to, okay. The experiences that you had with this individual are experiences that will inform the future decisions you make, how you move in the future, not only in romantic relationships, but also in engagements with people in general. Yes, this situation was meant to inform that, but not through means of like a lack of trust. That you are experiencing that lack of trust and that fear of like connecting with people again, that fear of trusting yourself, because the last time you trusted yourself to trust someone, it didn't go well, like if that applies, that's all part of it. The next part of it, to make the whole experience, to make the experience whole, oh my God, why can I not speak? To make the experience whole, the second part of this whole experience is you understanding that like you can't know something you've never been through. And when you go through something and you experience it as raw as you are experiencing it, you walk away with wisdom because it impacted you so much. And so the Hanged Man here is speaking of, okay, you have experienced everything so far. It's time for you now to see this whole experience through the lens of acceptance, through the lens of, okay, I went through this, but I am no longer as impacted by it as I was in the past. Now, what does that mean? First of all, if you are right now currently still feeling fresh about the whole thing, that is okay. Fret not. The whole point is the passage of time. The passage of time, time heals all wounds. It's so damn true. Now how much time it might take, that's gonna differ, of course. But the point is, you have to wade through the shitty parts of this experience, which is the pain, the disappointment, the anger, etc. Before you can get to the point where, okay, I have felt it so long, I am at like, there's nothing new for me to churn out. Like I've experienced everything that I need to. Like I've squeezed everything that I can from this experience, and it's time for me to put this down and set my sights towards something else. And so that's the point of the Hanged Man. That's, once you get to that point, that's the Hanged Man moment, where it's like, okay, now that I have seen and looked at and turned over this whole experience through a lens of hurt and disappointment, let time go on and like build a life that isn't tainted by all of these things that happened with this person. And then once you're there, you'll be able to think back on all of this as a memory, and then be able to see, like, look at these memories, look at what happened through a calmer lens, because you're looking at it, you're not looking at those memories through the hurt, through the pain, and it doesn't feel as fresh. It's not like, just trust me when I tell you that. Like, it is so true that once you're over something and you think back on it, there have been so many times where I think back to certain situations that I, no longer feel so raw about, and it's like, oh my God, that's what they were trying to like communicate, or like, that's what was going on. Like, I should have seen it then. Like, but of course I was so like in the moment, and anytime that I thought about it while I was getting over it was like through a lens of disappointment. I couldn't see it for what it was. Just, so that's the whole point, is that the Hanged Man is that point of, there's a lot to gain from this experience. It's just that first you have to get to the point where you're basically over it, where you've turned, and like, over it doesn't mean like, don't feel like you're failing because you're not over it yet. Take all the time you need, beloved. It's just, the point is, the comfort in this reading is that this isn't all that there is to this experience. There is more, and it will be peaceful, and it will be very beneficial to you. It's just you haven't gotten there yet, and that's okay. Maybe you have. Maybe some of you have already gotten here, and so you're at that point where it's like, okay, I no longer feel impacted by that. Look, like, as impacted as I used to be. Like, yes, I've definitely molded my life in a way that was informed by what happened with that person. But what happened with that person specifically isn't something that I think of, and I can think about it, and it doesn't like immediately throw me out of whack. I can think about it, and I can stay regulated. And so, okay, cool, great. Now, because, okay, before I continue, the whole story behind the Hanged Man is, well, the traditional mythology associated with the Hanged Man is that of Odin hanging himself from the world tree for 3 days in order to gain the gift of prophecy, prophetic sight, basically, because he was about to fight a war. And so he hangs himself, like, from like upside down. Now, certain mythologies speak that he hangs himself from the neck, which is pointless because he's immortal, so he doesn't die. Others other mythologies stipulate that he hung himself from his foot. And so that's where we get this imagery of like someone being upside down, him gaining this new perspective, and that being a metaphor for that prophetic vision that he would be able to gain, basically. Okay, so now then that you're at this point, or when you get to that point of, okay, I'm no longer as emotionally thrown by all of this as I was in the past, I'm ready to move on, or I have moved on, you can post yourself up on the Hanged Man now. And you can look at everything that went down from that new place, from that new perspective that you're at now, because you've built something more stable. Or when you get there, you'll be able to look on it from that place that you've built. And so, okay, now that I've said all of that about the Hanged Man, why I wanted to start with the Hanged Man, why I skipped over the Eight of Wands reversed, is because once you're the Hanged Man and you're seeing everything upside down, the reversals are now seen upwards. Okay, so what does that mean? Is that what the Eight of Wands reversed and the Nine of Cups reversed are talking about are things that can only be accessed once you have taken the position of the Hanged Man. So basically, there are blessings that are waiting for you once you get to that point where you can think back on all of this without being thrown by it. But then when you're sitting there and you're thinking back on everything that happened and you're processing it from that point, not because you feel like you need to or like, oh, there's so much about, no. Just because, sometimes your mind just wanders and it's just like, oh, okay, like I'm making sense of this now. It just happens. Healing is linear. Healing is not linear. Healing is cyclical. And so, yes, you will return to thinking about this person as one does. It's okay. But again, once you're there at that point, like there's a lot to be gained from you thinking back on these moments. Now, yes, a lot of what there is to be gained is catharsis, is like validation of your own experiences where it like, maybe part of the grieving process after this person has left has been the acceptance of like how shitty their behavior was towards you. Like how maybe there were instances where they did very specific things that were very, very bad. But because you were so in love with them, you were like, they just had a bad day or like, et cetera, you made excuses. You didn't see it as bad as it was. And so part of the grieving process, once you got to the point of anger, was recognizing like, man, I didn't see it then, but man, now I see how shitty that was. And so, like, maybe in the moment, like, when you were healing, you didn't think of any specific instant of, like, because maybe there was so much bullshit that this person put you through that, like, you couldn't think of one specific moment, but it's like, oh my God, all of it was bullshit. Like, of course, I was right to be angry. That was also dumb. But okay, once you get to that point where you're no longer thrown by all of this and you've processed it and you're over it, you'll think back and be able to like pinpoint specific scenarios where it's like, man, that's exactly what I'm talking about. It was like moments like that like, that should have told me that this person was such a POS, and I'm struggling with the cursing here. That person was such a POS, and like that is so validating. Like I knew that I wasn't crazy when I knew that there were moments that this person was acting iffy, acting horribly. Okay, that is part of it, yes. But another thing that's coming through, and especially not only because we're getting the Eight of Wands, which is this. What I'm getting here is inspiration, and Nine of Cups is like emotional fulfillment, like not only emotional fulfillment, but like genuine joy, like the cherry on top type of joy, like not just good things happening, but like a whole bunch of good things happening, and it's like, oh, like wow, I'm having a phenomenal day or a phenomenal season or a phenomenal like moment in my life, and so okay, that we're having these two cards. Speaking, and then they're talking about like blessings waiting for you. And we also have tree, which I was talking about earlier, like what you can alchemize from all of this. And of course we can alchemize like trust and self-trust from all of this. Yes. But another thing that's coming through specifically is like, there's something that you can alchemize all of these experiences into. One, like specifically, I'm getting like some type of art. Now, maybe you have an art, you have a talent that like you heard me say that, and it's like, yes, I can channel all of this energy into that thing that I'm into. Yes, sure, that could be true. If you're like panicking because you don't have something to pour yourself into, don't panic. There's no need to panic. It will come. Maybe now's the perfect time for you to start to like try new things so that you can start to determine what exactly you want to like pour yourself and invest yourself into. If that just doesn't feel right to you, then don't worry. It'll come. It'll come naturally. And you'll just know that that's the thing that you're meant to pour yourself into. And it's not just about the emotional fulfillment that can come from pouring our emotions into something that we're passionate about. Yes, that is definitely something that is waiting for you should you choose to pour this into something that you're passionate about. Yes. But again, these three cards coming together, Tree, the Eight of Wands as inspiration, the Nine of Cups as emotional fulfillment. This could be something that could like be successful. And personally, like, I don't determine success. I don't define success as just like financial success. That definitely could be something that's coming through. But I definitely associate it with something that like, it's catharsis, like successful in terms of not only catharsis for you, but catharsis for other people. Success to me is something that like is influential and impactful. And sometimes like artists can put out something like super impactful that is known for generations and they die penniless. And that's not for me to like say that, hey, you know, you're going to have to die penniless. Or no, I'm not saying that I see that in the cards or like, no, I'm just saying there is value to whatever you choose to invest these emotions into. Because what you went through and the emotions that experience generated, it's good material. It's gold. And should you choose to learn how to like mold that gold, you definitely can into something that'll have like lots of returns, basically. But okay. To wrap up the reading, trust and self-trust. Basically how I was talking about with the first two cards of recognizing how this whole experience did not break you. Where it applies, it shaped you to be something better for yourself, but very likely for other people as well. Because the Knight of Pentacles, all knights, I mean, they're soldiers. They are the footmen of the monarchs, and you know they basically my God, what is the word that I'm looking for? They enforce the monarch's law. Now that's all very like mundane. But basically what I'm trying to point out is that the cards are speaking. Each layer of these cards is pointing out your strength. And the Knight of Pentacles specifically is one that values their wisdom. Now that the cards are describing you this way, but then also that you're here at this tarot reading, which is talking all about the capacity, dare I say, the desire to alchemize the pain that you've been through and turn that into something better, turn that into something that is like for you and not something that was done to you, basically. That's magic. That's that real shit. That's like divine, basically. And if you don't feel like you trust yourself now, it's because you don't see your strength clearly enough. You know, if you really do have to, when you're honest with yourself, if you have to be a little like, you know, if you have to be disappointed with yourself because you recognize that you did act a fool, that you were given clear messaging and clear indicators that this person wasn't someone to trust, but for whatever reason you decided to anyway. Okay, be disappointed with yourself, but also give yourself grace. You did it for love. You did it in the name of love. And although, yes, you know, in some cases, maybe you did act a fool, now you know better. To do it in the name of love is not enough. You cannot just throw out your rationality in the name of love. That's just not how that works. I don't know. I'm sure you know that though. But the point is, if you don't trust yourself now, know that you are someone to trust because of your unwillingness to be defeated. You at the very least you can trust yourself to take care of yourself in those terms where even if you feel like you're under the boot of it all now, like this reading and the fact that you're still here means that you do understand that you have the capacity for this. Like, you're not going to stay there. And that is strength. And that is something to trust. Your strength is something to trust. And therefore, you have, like, you can trust yourself. Now, if you don't feel like you're there yet, or you have a long ways to go, well, then go ahead and go that long way, because you are someone worth trusting. You can trust yourself. And if you can't trust yourself right now, then shape yourself to be hold yourself in discipline to be someone worth trusting. My friend, I really hope that this helped. I wish you Godspeed on all of your endeavors, and also I hope to catch you at another one of our readings. But even if I don't, well wishes and goodbye. Alright, hello Pile 3, and welcome to your reading on being personally victimized by love. Now, before we begin, how this message is going to apply is going to depend on where in the timeline you are. For a lot of you, the way that this message is coming through, the majority of you are way past the finish line of the grieving process, of the processing of the heartbreak, the whatever happened that made you feel personally victimized by love. So for a lot of you, it's that this was a while ago, but as you know, things are cyclical instead of linear. You do return to like memories of things, and so maybe you've been kind of thinking back on that heartbreak, on that victimization by love per se. And so that's why this reading is coming up now. For some of you, it's that you're at the finish line where you have been processing and grieving this, and you are finally feeling at the point where you're ready to move into the next chapter of life where you're not as impacted by this as you have been. And for a few of you, it's that you're still in the throes of the disappointment, of the heartbreak that you are enduring with a specific individual. And so for those of you, for the few of you that you are still in the throes and it's all fresh and you don't feel like you're over it at all, and it feels maybe even impossible that that's ever going to happen, this reading is coming through today to basically give you, it's basically your future self sending you a love letter to your present self to let you know, hey, there's a lot more that's coming. The same can be said for those of you whom are at the finish line now. This is kind of letting you know what there is to expect as you're moving forward into this next chapter of your life. And for those of you, the majority of you who are at that point where you've really laid this to rest and it's been a while, you're at a completely new stage in your life, this reading is meant to serve as affirmations for what you have already figured out about that specific romantic entanglement, romantic, whatever the hell you want to call it. So, okay. We have the Lenormand cards answering the question of what it was that what happened that made you feel personally victimized by love. And so we only have one card here kind of talking about the relationship itself, and that is the mice card, basically, where that's kind of a card of plague of something that we have to deal with, and that does, it's not something we can ignore. So like heartbreak, like grievance, like something gone awry in a romantic relationship. Ship, though, is a departure from anything that any card that comes before it. So a departure from that heartbreak and disappointment, as we were explaining mice to be. And maybe not as a direct result of you moving away from it, but what you found once you moved away from that energy was luck, was things going in your favor, things kind of looking up. Maybe there were like a lot of blessings to be had in not only the process of moving away from this individual, but establishing this new chapter of your life. And so, like, the fact that this message of, yeah, there was this thing that happened and it sucked, but I moved away from it, and now I'm experiencing how much better things are on this side than they were over there. Even if you don't compare it that way, when you do think about it, it's like, oh, yeah, definitely. Like, when I was in that situation, it was like very miserable, versus where I'm at now. I'm a lot better. And I, like, to some degree, I am happy that things didn't pan out with that individual. So the fact that this message is coming through answering the question of what happened for you to feel personally victimized by love, well, it's, again, showing that it's not something that's really... It's something you recognize you've laid to rest. So again, that's kind of where I was getting that, where I was introducing where you're going to have to take this message as it applies to wherever you are at in the timeline. If this is a love letter from you in the future, or if this is just affirming what you've gone through. With divinity answering the question of what value there is in the processing, what value there is to be had through those experiences. And since the experience that was picked up on in the first part was one of your departure from that negative energy, divinity, where that's where I kind of, how I said earlier, where it wasn't just about getting away from them that was filled with blessings. It was also, once you establish something new away from them, there were blessings there too. If you are of a spiritual inclination, then chances are that through that experience, your faith was strengthened, if not established. If you are not a spiritual person, then you understand that the experiences that you had there and everything that you've learned from processing all of that is something that has gained you wisdom. It's something that has helped you understand how you have to go through life experiences in order to really know about life and then be able to make informed decisions as you mold your future. So the value to be taken from this experience is life experience, wisdom, deeper connection to ourselves and spirituality, if that applies. To that end, the tarot portion is just an elaboration on what was going on in that relationship, and then kind of like a message for you as well for where you're at now. Again, if you're already laid this to rest, then again, just affirmations for you. With the Queen of Cups reversed, first of all, I want to talk a little bit about how I'm interpreting, because all three cards are coming up reversed. That, with the fact that we have the mice card representing that relationship, of course, it was tumultuous. That's where I'm getting that like sense of it wasn't a good place for you to be. That being said, I'm interpreting the reversals as the message for you right now that you are feeling like not feeling as impacted by this as you used to be. And then I'm interpreting like each upwards card as what was going on in that relationship. And so they're coming up reversed because that relationship is no more. And so they're coming up reversed as the lessons you've learned from that and its ending. So in that relationship, you were the Queen of Cups. So you were very emotionally giving. You were very emotionally nurturing. You were what... No tea, no shade. But basically that stereotype of there's always going to be the one partner that's more emotionally nurturing and more emotionally tolerant than the other one is. That was you. There's also this sense of if either you had kids with this person, you wanted to, and if there was not a desire for kids, then it was a desire to build a life with this person. If it's not that you did do that. Okay, to move into the Valet of Swords, the Page of Swords. These are in French, Lord. Okay, this is kind of like a double message where it's talking a little bit about your partner, but also about you. So about your partner, that they're coming up as the Page and you're coming up as the Queen, it's immediately denoting this gap, this canyon in terms of level where... you were a lot, just point blank, you were more than this person is or could ever be, to be honest. At least where you stand right now. Maybe this person does have the capacity to grow, but it's just not something that you ever saw, and it's not something that's going on in the present. And again, if you've laid this to rest, then it doesn't matter. But while you guys were in that relationship, there was just an understanding, even if you didn't see it, that there was a difference in maturity, a huge one. You knew what you wanted. You were happy to be emotionally there because you were there out of love and to honor your feelings and the relationship that you had built with this person, and this person wasn't taking it as seriously as you were. Now, talking about you, it's pointing out the immaturity on your part, but let's not call it immaturity. Let's call it more innocence, more like not in ignorance, but not in a dirty way, not in a bad way, but like ignorance in terms of you just didn't know any better. And even if you did, you have to give yourself grace for the fact that you were acting in the name of love. Now, have we learned that saying we're doing something in the name of love doesn't actually make it so? Like, that's not enough justification for allowing things to go on. And I'm sure you understand that now. But, you know, the Page of Swords coming up to represent you as well as the Queen of Swords, it's like the Queen of Cups. Yes, you were emotionally there and you had the capacity to be like very emotionally vulnerable and available to this person. But you also recognize that, like, doing this for the person that you were with, you've learned from that. You've now know better than to expose yourself so much to someone who just does not know how to handle that. That they're coming up as the Page of Swords also. There might have been something about like, okay, I don't know how this is going to apply, whether or not you fell for it. But there's something about like they were very good at maneuvering. They were very good at manipulation to whatever the degree that applies. And it might have been that like, yeah, you fell for it. Or it might have been that you just saw right through it. But for whatever reason, it endeared you to them. That they were like wanting to manipulate you. No judgment, queen. Why? Because what's coming through with the devil is that why you tolerated so much was because the chemistry was real. It comes through as animalistic chemistry. One where when you guys were physically around each other, there was very little else that was going through your mind. For this person, because they're being described by the page, it was very much physical. Where for you, yes, it was physical, but it was also like you were getting wet for the whole dream, not just the physical aspect of it. Apply that as you need to. I know that not everybody here has... Well, you know what? We do all get wet, don't we? Anyways, okay, sorry. Anyways, devil energy here taking over me too. The devil being here to kind of talk about the two of you in relationship. It's like, yes, you guys were very much in the throes of it, especially you. Just very much head over heels over this person. Even if it didn't get to like a physically intimate point, like you were very much into this person. I would even say that this person, you would describe this person as being like your ideal in terms of what you look for in a partner physically. Maybe even beyond that. But okay. Now that we've talked about how these cards represent the relationship that you had with this individual, let's talk about how they are describing you at the present point in their reversed forms. The Queen of Cups reversed is an understanding of letting the dreams that you had at that point when you were building something with that person, you no longer have those dreams. Not because it's like, oh, it's impossible for me to have those things, but because since you have developed yourself so much, since you've progressed so much, so too have your dreams. Your dreams have grown. Your capacity for imagining what is possible has grown bigger than what you thought possible at that point. And so the dreams that you had back then you consider them small compared to the dreams that you have today. Dreams in terms of like expectations for a romantic partner, but even beyond that as well. So the Queen of Cups reverse is like, yes, the what I wanted back then played a really big part in what I tolerated from this person. I really wanted that to happen with this person, and that's why I put so much effort into that relationship. But I am now understanding that I cannot move in those ways, or I've, maybe even it's to the point where learning from that experience, I was able to make decisions that have landed me in a healthy relationship. The Page of Swords reversed is a laying down of it's a double whammy, where one, it's a laying down of the immaturity and ignorance that we were talking about, where like you just didn't know any better, or you were acting in ways that you know that you shouldn't have, doing it in the name of love. It's a laying down of that type of energy. But it's also coming through as a laying down of resentment, of a laying down of any grudges that you might hold against this person. There's a Celia Cruz song, and I don't remember which one it is, and I don't remember exactly how it goes, but translated, it says, that's how you know you've forgiven, when you can remember without pain. And that's what the Page of Swords Reversed is basically giving me, where it's like you're laying down this sword because you can remember all of that's gone on, and it doesn't bother you anymore because you've processed it, and you're just in a completely different place, and you're being fulfilled by different things, and you've got so many other things going on that this thing that went on in the past that you did have to process and you have to go through because it was so big in your life, that's just not, that was a different part of my life, and I'm in a different part of my life now. And so you can remember without hurting, and so that's forgiveness. You did it the natural way. You didn't just force it and be like, yeah, I forgive you, even though you're still angry. No, you're understanding what true forgiveness is, which is just processing and getting it out of your system, and then getting to a point where it's like, okay, yeah, I'm ready to lay this to rest because it just doesn't bother me anymore. And so the Devil Reversed is the expelling of all of this energy, where it's a liberation from all of this energy. You are no longer binded to all of this that went on. It's been some time since you've felt binded to this person, but you now no longer feel binded to the grievance and the hurt and the pain that followed the ending with that person. You have liberated yourself. You have cut your ties. You have unbound yourself from all of that. And so, yeah, I do kind of want to point out that the other piles did get 5 cards in their spreads for tarot, but when I was shuffling your cards, it was just very clear that it was just supposed to be 3, so I didn't fight against that. And I mean, I feel like it wasn't necessary because, again, it's just meant to be this concise message of affirmation to where you're at or what's promised for you as you continue through your emotional healing process after this disappointment. My friend, I hope that this helped. I wish you Godspeed on all of your journeys, and I hope to catch you at another one of my readings. Bye.